I appreciate that. All right. Challenge the limits. That's a good one. How many people here would like to have a little more fun in life? Just a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, got about half of you. How many would like to have a little more money in their lives? Anybody here? I bet you got the other half, that's easy. How many would like a little more love in their lives? Just a little bit. Guys got 2 hands up back there. We say we want more love, we want more money, we want more fun in the world, and yet for some reason or other, we're not willing to make the mental and physical changes necessary to bring about the changes. That's what Webster in his best-selling book, The Dictionary, calls stupid. You can't have change without being willing to make the shift. And the shift I'm talking about is simple. It's from wanting to having, from thinking about to doing, from dreaming to experiencing. And we as individuals don't have to go that much further, just a little bit of a stretch to make a significant difference in our lives. Now, one way we can challenge ourselves is through words, the way we use them for a benefit or a detriment. And words make an extraordinary impact in our lives. We have physical physics laws, and we have laws of metaphysics as well. I'm going to quote a lot of authoritative people today, and they all are speaking along the same lines. David McClellan from Harvard said, "We talk to ourselves all the time. The problem is we believe what we say." And that's a challenge. Now, you're different. You're a different audience. I'm not calling you weird. I'm just calling you different. And I know you believe you understand what you think I just said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. So why are you different? You're different because you came to the program today. You showed up. Put your hand high over your head. Reach it up there. Okay. Now reach over and pat someone on the back. You came to the program today. You showed up. Woody Allen says 80% of life is just showing up. Another reason you're different is because I believe you're open-minded. You're always open to new ideas. And when you're that way, that's what Ernest Holmes was looking for, and the quote you gave was very appropriate. Ernest put it this way. He said, "There is a power for good in the universe greater than you are." And you can use it, but you can also flip that around. There's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and it can use you. I mean, after all, we are the hands and feet of the divine spirit. And I think that's important. It can work both ways. So if you want to look at it this way, that I'm a tool, you're a tool for the divine spirit. I don't mind being a tool for the divine spirit. I think it's a pretty cool tool. I don't mind being a mouthpiece for the divine spirit. I don't mind being a catalyst for movement, a catalyst for change, because everything I say, think, see, and do shapes my world and sets an example for others. All right. It's the little things in life that make a big difference. And sometimes we take a lot for granted. It was Will Rogers who put it this way. He said, "It ain't what a man don't know that hurts him. It's what he knows that ain't so that hurts him." And there are an awful lot of things that people know that just ain't so. We see that a little bit today. Anyway, if I were to say to you, it happened back in 200 BC, you would probably think that that would be 200 years BC, before Christ. And if I were to say to you it happened in 200 AD, a lot of people believe that's 200 years after death. But if it were after death, which it's not, that would discount the entire 33 years that Jesus supposedly lived. So it's a Latin term. AD is a Latin term for Anno Domini. We live right now in 2023, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. That's the Latin interpretation of the year of our Lord. All right. I made notes to stay on track. Another thing we take for granted. A little sip of water. You know, it's all recycled. There's no new water on the planet. Everything is recycled. So the sip of water I just took could have been the water that Caesar drank. The sip of water I'm taking now could have touched the lips of Jesus. The sip of water you're going to take tomorrow might be the water that quenches your thirst of your great-great-grandchildren. You have to think about this. Boy, the right mind sits around all night thinking about this stuff. No, I kind of do. And I like to equate things, and I think about things. As I mentioned to you, something occurred to me just the other day, and I'm going to talk about later on. I'm always looking for ways to express ideas. The straw and how we use the straw is the same principle that airplanes fly. It's the principle of aerodynamics. Now, the wing of an airplane has a curvature to it. And Bernoulli, a while back, came up with a theory, which put into practice works very well, that a fluid in motion produces less air pressure than a fluid not in motion. So the faster a fluid moves, it creates less air pressure. So you're actually lifting the plane, and the pressure of the air underneath it, because it's less pressure on top, lifts the airplane. A straw works in exactly the same way. A lot of people think they suck the liquid into their mouths, but they don't. It's the air pressure pushing down on the surface of the liquid in the glass, pushing it up into the straw, because you're just reducing the air pressure slightly in the straw. And that's how the straw works. So this is something I sit around thinking about. It's simple physics. Sometimes, however, the methods don't come in logical order. Even though it's physics, you think it'd be logical, it doesn't come that way. Riddle me this: how is it that we set foot on the moon before we figured out it'd be a good idea to put wheels on luggage? And yet that's exactly the way it was. 1969, we set foot on the moon. 1971, we figured out we better put wheels on luggage. Right. I always try to put my programs together in a way that will be able to be conceived a little bit more easily by the audiences. I was speaking at LA City College. I was speaking to the physics department a few months ago. And I was talking, my topic was, why Mars, why now? So, in order to get their attention, where's Werner? There he is. In order to get their attention, I put things in the terms of Werner von Braun, the late great space age scientist, helped get us to the moon. He was giving a program on science and religion. And he said, after my studies in the universe and the grandeurs of the cosmos has only led me to believe in the certainty of a creator. He said, I just cannot believe that all this came into being without the presence of what he called a divine will. And then he said, we don't have any difficulty in building a spaceship and sending the man to the moon, and we can time the landing with the precision of a fraction of a second. He said these laws must have been set by someone. He said science and religion are not antagonistic. On the contrary, they're sisters. While one studies creation, the other studies the creator. In science, man tries to harness the forces of nature around him, and in religion, he tries to harness the forces of nature within him. And it all operates by law, and there's not that much allowance for ignorance. You may have read some of James Allen's work, As a Man Thinketh. Has anyone ever read that little book? It's a fabulous book. He threw it away, he threw the manuscript away. His wife found it in the trash, and she said, James, this is good work. You need to get it published. As a man thinketh, well, right now it would be as a man and woman thinketh, or as a person thinketh, but this is the way we were writing back at that time. Anyway, one of the things he said in the book, and I love it, he said, mind is the master power that molds and makes. He said, man is mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought, and shaping what he wills, he'll bring forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. And then he points out that we think in secret, and we do, because we're all doing it right now. But it comes to pass, environment is but our looking glass. And locked up in that little statement is something pretty powerful. It says, everything in your physical world, from the chair you're sitting in, the clothes you're wearing, the ceiling, the floor, the lights, the walls, everything was but an idea to begin with. And it only stands to reason, at least in my mind, if you want to change anything in the outer world, you've got to go to the source, one's thinking. Now you mentioned my affirmation that I say every day. I want you to hear it again, because before we dig into why it's so absolutely powerful, I use the acronym RAT. Recognize, accept, and thanks. Everything I need is present and available to me now. I recognize it, I accept it, and I'm thankful. And I've said that every morning. Dana and I are on the same track. By the way, if you haven't met my wife, Dana, Dana, stand up. This is my wife, Dana. She's the one who makes my life the spectacular adventure that it is. We met in 1977, as you mentioned, at the Mile High Church of Religious Science in Denver, Colorado. And just a few weeks ago, we celebrated our 46th year together.
Wow.
So she's got more patience and tolerance than I do. All right. So I like to talk about this as word magic, how we use words. See, word magic will form the fabric of your future. Don't talk about what you don't want, talk about what you do want. Don't talk about the problem, talk about the solution. When you change the things you say about the things you do, you change your very experience. When you change the things you say about those with whom you associate, you change your relationship. And again, it all operates by law, and there's no allowance for ignorance. It changes actually what we do. My friend Ron gives examples of this. He was a consummate teacher. And he likes to put things together in a way that makes sense for his children from everyday practical experience. And this day, he was going to teach Jason, his son, ethics. So he was living in Prescott, Arizona, and Ron was going to go to the bank, and Jason wanted to go with him, so he said, come on, get in the car. So they drove to the bank, pulled into the parking lot. Ron got out of the car and said, Jason, wait here for me, I'll be right back. So Ron walked up to the glass doors. Jason watched it. He opened the doors, greeted everyone as he walked in the bank, handed a check to the teller. The teller gave him some money and he put it in his pocket, thanked the teller, and walked back to the glass doors and stopped, because he knew Jason was watching him. And he reached into his pocket and he pulled out the money and started counting it with a perplexed look on his face. And then he put it back in his pocket, walked through the doors, got in the car, and the first question out of Jason's mouth was, what's wrong, Dad? And he said, son, we have a problem. The teller has given me $100 more than she should have. We have an ethical dilemma, and I need your help. Should we or should we not tell your mother? All right, now that was a joke that Ron later shared with Jason. But even though the teller had not given Ron the additional $100, Jason remembers that incident to this day. Why? Because Ron knew that an emotional experience, whether happy, sad, fearful, even humorous, will lock itself into our minds forever. Prove it to yourselves. Think of something from the past. If it's a prominent thought, most likely it was an emotional experience. Speaking of emotional experiences, does anyone here know anyone at all who's ever failed kindergarten? Anybody? It's not easy to do, I'm sure. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay. I went to 36th Street Elementary School in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mrs. Werfel was my kindergarten teacher. She was a tall gal, wore black dresses most of the time with flowers. She had a bun in the back of her head. And we were sitting around this wooden table making paper boxes with this huge jar of white paste that you love to eat. You know, it's kind of a peppermint taste. And I was putting more on my paper box than my tongue than I was on my paper box. Mrs. Werfel came up to the table. She picked up one of the kids' paper boxes and she held it high over her head. And she said, "Children, this is not the way to make a paper box." And she threw it on the table. Oh, no. The kid was embarrassed. You could see that his head, face was turning red. He was embarrassed. Tears were starting to well up in his eyes. And as she was holding my box high over her head, that was my box, all right. I felt like I was out of step with the class. And I didn't spend but 2 weeks in school after that. I got mumps, whooping cough, measles, bronchitis, strep throat, anything so I didn't have to go back to school. And I had to take that paper box over again. I watched all the kids walk on to first grade and I had to stay back. I took special reading classes all during elementary school because I was taught I was a slow reader. I took special reading classes all during high school because I was taught I was a slow reader and I bought it. Mrs. Ingram, my English teacher, by the way, they didn't have a name for the word dyslexia at the time. Mrs. Ingram said something to me and I was so embarrassed because Polly Jens was standing right here. At the end of the class, just 5 of us. Polly, Jack Husky, and Wally Henderson were standing by the blackboard. Mrs. Ingram was talking to me, and I knew Polly could hear. I had a crush on Polly. I never asked her out. Never did. Anyway, Mrs. Ingram said, "Jim, don't ever attempt college. You will never make it." And I slinked on into the hallway. I learned 2 things from that. One was, never allow anyone's opinion of you to become more important than your own opinion of yourself. And number 2, whenever you're self-assured, you don't attract an adverse opinion. Whenever you feel right inside, you don't pull out garbage from other people. And whenever you know who you are, you don't create static in the world around you. You know why? Because it's a law. And there's not that much allowance for ignorance. We've got to know what we have inside, and we've got to know how to get it out. There are many ways to reach an end. Some are actually better than others. Now, something else very interesting happened in my Milwaukee high school. I've never shared this with the audience ever before, and it just came to me the other day. Why not? Kind of a strange thing to talk about. Dr. Bronner's Castile All-One soap. What I'm about to share with you, you will never look at this bottle in the same way as you are now. Dr. Brunner had a son, Ralph. Ralph was my high school buddy. Ralph Brunner Ed Mindock, Joe Bastian were seniors. I was a junior. I looked up to them. And for some reason or other, they brought me into their circle. That's almost unheard of in high school. Ralph was the thinker, Ed was the photographer, and Joe was the musician. And they gave me something more valuable than any amount of money can buy. Through their example, they taught me inclusivity and they taught me self-esteem. Whenever I use that stuff, how many use that soap? Anybody? You can buy it at Trader Joe's, it's great stuff. I use it every day. Wash my hair today with it. All right. Maxwell malts. I'm going to tie this together with Maxwell malts. Have you read the work by Maxwell malts, Psychocybernetics? Anybody familiar with Psychocybernetics at all? I know you're about as familiar with him as you are with my book. Anyway, he said that experimental and physical psychologists have proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that your mind cannot tell the difference between something seen visually and physically and something imagined vividly and in detail. Can't tell the difference. That says to me we can start playing some games with our minds. We can start impressing what we want to express, and we can start thinking about what we want to come about. We're magic. Let me play a little game with you here. Take your thumb and index finger and make a circle out of it. Now just do it for me. Pacify me. All right. Now put it up to your eye and look around. You've been wanting to anyway. Okay. Put it over your head and shake it. Start shaking it. Okay. Can you all see me okay? Can you see me? Okay. Bring it straight on down to your chin. On your chin. This is your chin. I saw him drag it down. I didn't say it wasn't, going to be a classy lecture. I never signed a contract saying that I was going to give one classy lecture. But it does drive home a point. We do tend to respond to what we see. I want to ask you the most powerful question you've ever been asked in your lives. How do you see yourself in your mind? Because I can guarantee you this. The way you see yourself is the way you greet the world. And that is exactly the way the world greets you back. And at the risk of being redundant, there's not that much allowance for ignorance. Anyone who's ever had anything worth saying, anyone who's ever had anything worth writing down in the entire history of our civilization, they have all said the same things, and they have all told us how to do it. You've got to get the picture in your mind, act as though you are and you will be. What you see with your mind closed, you'll eventually see with your eyes open. Even Solomon said, where there is no vision, the people will perish. The Master 2,000 years ago said, pray believing you have received. In the present moment, this is no secret, ladies and gentlemen. This is here for all of us to learn from. And finally, Rebecca Clark, a Unity minister, put it very well. She said, every single blade of grass and every flake of snow is just a wee bit different. There are no two alike, From something small like grains of sand to each gigantic star, each one was made with this in mind, to be just what they are. How foolish then to imitate, and how useless to pretend when each one of us comes from a mind whose ideas never end. Now there will only be just one of me to show what I can do. And likewise, you should feel very proud that there's only one of you. Steve, thank you for recommending me. Anne, thank you for bringing me in. And thank you all for showing up. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure.